Thank you. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your afternoon. I know you've been on calls all day, and this is the last session of the day, I believe. So hopefully we'll make it worth your while. We have 2 hours allotted. I don't know how long it'll take. A lot of that will depend on you and your questions and any feedback you want to give throughout the presentation. Josh is going to help us throughout, which is great. But just to give you a quick idea of what to expect, we've got a PowerPoint presentation that won't, well, again, depends on the questions, but it shouldn't take more than an hour to get through even with the questions. After that, we've got a demo. We're kind of excited to show you a demo of the employer portal, the application that we built for Gemini that employers will be using to report data to us. That demo is a video of about 20 minutes, and we'll go through that, and I'll pause it throughout, ask if anybody has questions, clarify a few things. So that's pretty much the program, but I just want you to know that we will do our best to answer every question you have. We don't want you to hold back. If you have concerns, thoughts, share them with us throughout. I told Josh to go ahead and present those questions as he gets them, and we can always, if I feel like it's going to be addressed later, I will indicate that. Otherwise, we'll answer. And I've got a couple people here to help that I'll introduce in just a minute. There is several, or quite a few, probably TRS staff, some of my staff, and a couple of executive staff from TRS on the call. So just so you know, we brought a small busload of expertise, so we should be able to answer any questions that you have. With that, let's get going. Quick introductions. My name is Grant Brower. I'm the Employer Services Manager at TRS, and I'm also the Gemini product owner. So I have been with the project, the Gemini project, from its inception. And Employer Services, if you don't already know, and I'm sure most of you do who are on this call, we are a group of auditors, and I also consider us support staff for employers, the 990 employers that report to TRS. Have a great group that works on my staff, and many of them are on the call, but they are the ones that you will be calling when you have questions, issues, once we go live with Gemini. Chris Foster is our business analyst extraordinaire. I left the extraordinaire off this slide, but he has also been with the project from early on, and he's one of our lead business analysts. And is a great liaison between the business side, which is my side, and the IT side, the technical people. And he's actually the one that put the demo together that I'll be showing in a little bit, and did a great job with it. Lisa Lockey has been in Employer Services since a long time. Let me just say a long time, 30 some odd years. So she is truly a subject matter expert. Not only with Gemini, but general reporting questions. And I have both of them on the call today to help me with any calls that are above my knowledge base, which doesn't go very high sometimes. So here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to give you an overview of the Gemini project. Some of you may have already seen this presentation. I haven't changed it very much in the last year or so. But it's always good to go through it again. Some of the timelines have changed. We're going to talk about that and what that means. But we'll talk about the new reporting process. All the 990 employers have reported their annual report to us this year. And that's what's changing. You're now no longer going to be reporting on an annual basis once we go live with Gemini, but you will be reporting on a pay period basis. And we'll talk about that complete process. And the demo will actually demonstrate or illustrate what that process is going to look like. We'll talk about some key concepts, basically some changes to the reporting process, things that you haven't had to report to us before, but now we are asking you to report to us, so we'll talk about that. And one of the big things is the defined contribution plan, which we are calling supplemental savings plans. So we will talk about that. And then, like I said, we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers, but don't hold back. If you want to wait till the end, ask your question, that's fine. But if you have something pressing, you want it answered right away, send it in. Josh will read it, and we'll address it as it comes in. Okay. So here we go. Why are we building Gemini? What is Gemini all about?
Hey, Grant.
Yes.
Maybe it's just for me, but I think you're just sharing the demo video. I'm not seeing that. If you're supposed to be showing the slides right now, I'm not seeing it.
I am. Oh, thanks, Chris. Thank you, Chris. So do I need to stop share and start over? Let's try that.
Yeah, so either just click the presentation from your options of share, things to share, or you can share your entire screen that it's on.
Tell me if you see it now.
There we go.
See the Gemini project?
Yep.
Well, you didn't miss much.
Thank you for
Thank
that,
you, Chris. So again, why are we building Gemini? What's this whole project about, and why did we get into it? Well, first of all, I'll start by saying I came to TRS in December of 16, and at that time, TRS was talking about moving to a more frequent reporting, whether it was monthly or pay period. But it was just a high-level talk at that time. Nothing was really definite. But with the passage of Public Act 100-0769, TRS was required, because of that Public Act, to come up with a defined contribution plan to offer all of its eligible members. So because of that, there's inherent requirements of a DC plan. So TRS had to come up with a way to start to get data from employers on a more frequent basis. So the supplemental savings plan that we've come up with, because of Public Act, we have to get that data from you when somebody enrolls in the SSP and get those deductions to the third-party vendor on a timely basis. So that's the impetus why we're going towards this pay period reporting. It doesn't involve just that. I mean, there's a lot of other things that go into it, but that gives you an idea of why we're headed down this route and why we have been for the last 2 or 3 years. Now I can't get my screen to, there it goes. So what is Gemini? What's it mean for you? So the annual reporting process, like I said, August 15th was the deadline to get your annual report in for the previous year. That will be going away eventually. As it turns out, you're going to have one more year. So this year that we are in right now will be reported starting July of 2021 through August 15th of 2021, just like it was this year. But that eventually will be going away. And instead, you're going to be reporting to us on a pay period basis. So that's a big change, because not only are we asking you to report to us more timely, we're going to ask that you report more data than you did on an annual basis to us every time you do report. Just a couple of points here. Right now, the defined benefit plan, which is what everybody is in currently, that's the 9% that goes into employees' retirements. Then at retirement, they have a defined benefit that they can take out and enjoy throughout their retirement years, and it will last them a lifetime. That can be reported to us on a monthly basis, but we are going to encourage you to report that to us also on a pay period basis. The new supplemental savings plan, the DC plan, that has to be reported to us every pay period. So anytime somebody gets a paycheck, and is enrolled in the SSP, we need to get those deferrals to us so that we can pass them on to Voya in a timely basis, because there are IRS requirements to that. So let's talk about the timeline. This is something that has changed just recently, and we did send a bulletin out, but let's go back in time. March of 19 is actually when we published a file layout. We defined all the requirements, data requirements that we were going to ask employers to report to us every pay period. It's a long document. It is out on the website. We did have a series of like 6 videos like this where we did introduce the file layout. We did explain all the fields. And then what's happened since then is mostly the payroll vendors that are out there, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, but the payroll vendors took that file layout, took those requirements, and went back and started developing applications that their employers that they contract with could use to get this data to us. So we've been working with a number of vendors since March of 19. In January of 20, there were a few vendors that were able to, they were at a point where they could test some test files with us. So they were working with their employers, getting data out of their payroll, their current payroll, sending it to us as a test file. So we've been testing with the vendors since January of this year. And the testing has gone well. It's a cumbersome process. There's a lot of back and forth, but it's a learning process. Things we found that we had to tweak on our application, things that the vendors found out that they didn't interpret correctly, and they took back and been working on the development. But that testing is ongoing, and it's going to continue to be ongoing. And I'll show a slide here in a few minutes that gives you an idea of which of the vendors that are actively testing, others that we expect to be testing soon, and talk about that whole process. So training, obviously video conferences like this are helpful in training. This isn't meant to be end-all training by any means. This is more of an introduction or an update to what we've been doing. And the demo is a little bit of added feature that we're adding this time. But we want to get into some more detailed training. I changed the date to late 2020 or early 21. But right now I can't really determine when that training is going to be, but there will be more of these webinars like this. There's going to be more videos that we're going to put on the website that will demo the system. We'll also have some written material that we'll put out on the website also that you can access. That'll take you through the application step by step, give you hints, things like that. But let's skip forward to the go live date. The go live date we did have as January of 21. However, at the August TRS Board of Trustees meeting, there was a decision made by the board to actually, they want to procure the services, a professional team to come in and assess the Gemini project as a whole. Their intent behind that is just to make sure that we have dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, not missed any steps, and that we can give you the best product available, or best product possible when we do go live. So, but because that assessment is coming in at the 11th hour, so to speak, we did have to delay our go live, and until that assessment is complete, we can't really set a new go live date. So right now, it's all to be determined. Don't know exactly what the timing of this these professional services are going to be. It's going to we're going to have to procure that, so that does take some time, and then they'll have to go ahead and do their assessment, and I'm not sure how long that'll take. But as soon as we know something and can project out a go live date and know that we can be certain with that go live date, it is to be determined. So I'm just asking everybody to stay tuned, and we will keep you up to date as soon as we know something. Then if you back up to the initial employer setup, at some point prior to go live, a month or two prior to go live, we will turn on this employer portal, this application that we've developed, Gemini, so that you can go out there and tell us certain things. You know, tell us what do you have in sick leave for your normal annual allotment. Tell us, does your board pay TRS contributions for its members or not? You set up payroll schedules. There are things that we're going to ask you to do in this employer portal that we can use in validating the files that come in. So that's the overall timeline. There's things up in the air obviously right now, but as I said, just stay tuned, watch your emails, watch for employer bulletins, and we'll update you as soon as we know something more. So let's talk about the reporting process. This employer portal I keep talking about. Basically, we're setting this up as an interface between you, the employer, and TRS. We're setting it up as more of an employer self-service. So there's a lot of things you're going to be able to do in this portal that you don't have access to do currently. But it is going to be, yes.
We do have a question. Mary Beth is wondering about that timeline that you just shared. With the go live date as TBD, to be determined, do you expect that we will be doing the annual report the old-fashioned way for 2021?
Yes, you will be doing the annual report one more year. Yes.
Thanks so much.
Good question. So starting in July of 21, actually June of 21, we will turn on that annual report process. It'll be just like this year's, and you'll have until August 15th of 21 as the deadline to get that into us. Good question. But we're building this interface, again, as an employer self-service. You'll be able to get in there, obviously submit data to us for your employers or employees. You know, what are their earnings, what are their service credit, how many days did they work? But you're also going to be making payments through this portal. So you report to us 100 employees, they all owe 9% of their salary. It's going to show you how much that totals up to, and you'll be submitting payments with your report through this portal. You're going to be able to maintain current payroll schedules, like I said, sick leave. If you have flex plans, you'll be able to tell us about those so that we can validate the data coming in. You'll be able to manage your own contacts, so the people who you want TRS to know, these are the people that do TRS duties at your employer, and you'll also be able to set them up as users. And we'll see that demoed also in the demonstration. We'll have feedback in this portal. So there's going to be certain reports that we're going to put out on this portal just for you. It's a secure site that'll help you with the reporting of the next report possibly. Anybody who enrolls in the SSP, we're going to tell you who they are, how much they're enrolled for, and when you should start taking those deferrals out of their paychecks. Also, after you submit data, you will be able to make corrections and adjustments to the data that you've uploaded, so that you can make corrections, you know, and pass all of our validations before you submit and make payments based on that report. So again, we'll demonstrate that also in this demo. So the overall process, it's really just 4 steps. That's a high level, but 4 steps. Data submission. So you're going to get the data to us, and there's 2 ways, and I'll talk about that next slide. And there's 2 ways to get that data to us. Once the data is uploaded into the portal, you'll be able to correct any errors, because all of this data is going to run through a series of validations. Just to give you an idea of how extensive that is, we have over 100 validations, what we call edits in the current system. And those 100 validations, or 100 plus validations, are running against every record that you send in. So if you send in for 100 employees, those 100 employees, each one of those are going to go through those validations. So if it finds any errors, then you will have the opportunity to correct those errors right in the portal and move on with the process. If you find that you've made a mistake on almost everybody, or there's just too many errors that you want to deal with, you can void that out and you can start the whole process over. But once you get your errors corrected, you're going to be taken to a summary screen. This summary screen is going to tell you exactly what's in this report that you're trying to submit to us. So it's going to give you the number of members. It's going to tell you how much you owe in contributions, and for this fund, if Fed funds, if you have any Fed funds, you'll be able to add those as on the summary screen. So if you have people getting paid in salary through Fed funds, you're going to add that as a lump sum total now, whereas in the current annual process, you're doing that on a per member basis. So after you do all that through the summary screen, then you're going to pass it off to the payment screen. And the payment screen actually lets you pick a bank that you've already told us that you use for your employer, but you will be able to choose multiple banks if you want, or just one bank for us to do the EFT process to pay for all those contributions that you owe on that screen. So from data submission to submitting payment, it's all going to be in this employer portal. And this is a big difference too. Right now, you send us payments throughout the year for the contributions. So every pay period, you submit the contributions as you think you owe them, to the best of your knowledge. And then at the end of the year, we sum it all up with your annual report, and we tell you if you paid us too much or not enough, and we have a report difference process, and we either bill you or refund you at that time. In the new reporting process, you're only going to submit payments when you submit your report. So we can't have a report without a payment. We can't have a payment without a report. So that's going to be a big difference.
Another question coming, Grant,
Yep.
from Sue. She says, we use Omni as our third-party admin for 403B contributions. Voya is one of our vendors. If any TRS employee wants to contribute through TRS, do we still need to give that information to Omni as well?
Can you read that question one more time?
Yeah. So she said, we use Omni as our third-party admin for 403B contributions.
Right.
Voya is one of our vendors. If any TRS employee wants to contribute through TRS, do we still need to give that information to Omni as well?
No, if I'm understanding the question correctly, if they enroll with Voya for the TRS SSP plan, then you don't have to tell Omni anything. They can be enrolled in both as long as they don't go over the IRS limits for a tax qualified plan. And Carlton, you're on the call. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Grant, Omni being the third-party admin for 403B, even though Voya is a part of the 403B program that's separate from the 457, so that information does not have to be shared with them. They can enroll through our route with Voya directly without sharing that with Omni.
Thank you.
Great. So Sue, did that answer your follow-up there about the SSP plan being different from the 403B? Okay. Yes. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, our offering of the SSP should have no bearing on any of the plans you currently offer your employees. It's going to be an addition. It's a voluntary program at this point. So the employee will be the one who takes the initiative to go to Voya and enroll in the program. So, but if they want to stay in their current plan, they can do that also. So data submissions, how do you get the data to us? Talk about the frequency, but there are two ways to do it. One, and probably the most common, is going to be this file upload. Again, I talked about the file layout and the requirements that we published back in March of 19. And the vendors have been building applications for their employers to use to pull payroll data, put it in the format that we need it, with all the data that we need. And you will be able to log in to the employer portal every pay period, select a file from your computer or from the vendor's application, and then upload that file to us. And then that's when that file will go through all of our validation process. You'll be able to then make corrections and move through the steps. So that's going to be the most common. If you work with a vendor that is testing with us and we will certify them, then you're good to go with their application. The other option is data entry. Data entry typically should not be considered if you're a district with 100 or more members. Ideally, it would be even less than that, because data entry is basically what it says. It's going to be a manual entry. The first time after we go live, we're going to pull some data from the previous annual report, the most recent annual report. We'll pull that over so you don't have to enter all the demographics for everybody, but you will have to add new people. You'll have to take off people who are no longer with you, and you'll have to fill out the earnings, the contract days, things like that. And then every pay period after that first time, it'll be a replication process. So you'll look at the last report you just entered, you'll pull all that data forward and just make changes as needed. So if somebody got a raise, somebody didn't work as many days in the next pay period, you would make those adjustments as you go. And then beyond that, the process is the same for both of these data submission options. But again, what's going to be key is if you have a vendor who is tested with us and they are certified, file upload would be the way to go. For everybody else, if you're a small district, data entry is a viable option. If you don't have a vendor who's working with us and you are a larger district, anybody 100 or more members, we need to talk. Quite frankly, we just need to talk and figure out what your best option is. And with that, I'll add, your district or your employer probably got a phone call recently from one of our interns in our department who the main goal of those phone calls was try to figure out which employers work with which vendors, so that we know when, say, SDS, I'm just throwing that out there, SDS is certified as a vendor, that if you work with SDS, you're going to be certified also, and we're going to consider you ready to go for go live. But we do have a good idea of those districts that are a concern. They're too big for data entry, and they don't have a vendor, or they're not building an application in-house to get us this file in the format we need. So we will be working with those employers. Now nothing's moving. There we go. So a couple points about the supplemental savings plan. And I'm not going to get real deep into it. We are having meetings at least weekly, if not more often, with Voya to set up requirements. We're pretty far along in that process, working with interface files with them. And there's more to come out for employers as far as training, points to remember, and how this SSP plan is going to work. But some high level things to keep in mind. It is offered through Voya. I've mentioned that several times. Only full-time and part-time contractual employees are eligible to participate. So if you have substitute teachers, if you have hourly, so part-time non-contractual, they are not going to be eligible to participate at this time. At a later phase, we'll probably bring them in also, but at this time, it's just going to be full-time and part-time contractual employees. Those eligible employees, if they want to enroll, they will go to Voya's portal, and they will enroll with Voya. So they're not going to be going to their employer's payroll and say, hey, start taking $100 out of my check and sending it to Voya. We don't want you to do that. Unless they've enrolled with Voya, we don't want you to do a thing on payroll side. So next question obviously is, how do you know if somebody enrolled? We will notify you. So employers will be notified of enrollments that John Doe enrolled, and he asked to have this dollar amount taken out of his paycheck every pay period. We will tell you that through a report through the employer portal. So you're going to get what we're calling an employer packet. That's going to be one of the key reports that's in that employer packet every pay period, is telling you these are the people enrolled at your employer, and these are the amounts that you need to take. So that's how it will work. So if that employee if there's an employee who does not show up on that report, you should not be taking a deferral. So the report that we put out there is going to include new enrollments. So anybody newly enrolled in the plan, we will have a section for that. Anybody who changes their enrollment or their deferral. So they say, I want to change my deferral from 100 to pay to 200 to pay. We will categorize them as that. And we'll also tell you, even those people who have not changed. So you have these 10 employees who have been enrolled since its inception. We're going to tell you those same 10, even if they haven't changed, until they drop out of the plan. Okay?
Question here from Pam. She says, so if anyone enrolls in the SSP, the funds will be paid to TRS and TRS will forward to Voya?
Good question. Yes, that's exactly what will happen. Yeah, when you report to us through the portal, you're going to report for the DB plan. So, you know, just like you do now on an annual basis, your defined benefit, 9%, and their earnings and their days worked, all that's going to be reported to us. But also you're going to report a DC report at the same time, every pay period, if anybody's enrolled in this DC plan. So if John Doe is an employee at District 23, then District 23 will report John Doe in the DB plan. If he enrolls in SSP, you're going to send in 2 reports for John Doe, one for the DB and one for the DC. And that DC is going to include those deferrals with the money. And then we're just a pass-through and send it on to Voya at that point. Okay, switching back to a concern that's been a concern of employers from the time we started talking about this in March of 19. And that is acceleration of contributions. A lot of districts, well, districts have teachers. Teachers are members of TRS. So, and teachers inherently don't always work 12 months out of the year. In fact, rarely do they. So they may work 9 months, 10 months, whatever the school schedule is. However, their pay most often is spread out over 12 months. So that's one issue. Then TRS has there's a statute that says all contributions, all 9% contributions have to be to TRS by July 10th of each year, even though the employee is getting paid through the summer for work that he did for the previous year. So what a lot of districts did was accelerate their contributions throughout the year. So instead of taking 9%, maybe you take, I don't know what the factor is, but maybe it's closer to 10% or more every pay, so that everything is paid up for that member by June 30th, by that June 30th payroll, so that everything can be sent to us or paid to us to TRS by July 10th. What we're talking about on this slide, and we've changed the board rule, or I'm sorry, not the board rule, the rules with JCAR. So the TRS rules now read, the administrative rule, that there is no more of that acceleration. Every time you take, or every time somebody earns $1, 9% of that dollar needs to come to TRS. Not a higher amount, but straight 9%. We want to be able to validate that that 9% is coming to us every single pay period, and that you're not getting ahead of yourself or behind. So we are validating 9% every pay period. So the acceleration is not an option anymore for members or for employers. And that went into effect July of 2020, this year. So if you're still accelerating, you are going against the administrative rule, and we need to ask you to change that practice right away. This comes with some challenges for employers, but I think most employers have figured it out. The vendors have also, they understand the rule and are allowing for it, or making adjustments so that the accelerations are not being used anymore also. But if you need some ideas, there's a Q&A document that's also on the website that has been updated. It has several examples of how you can not only report those summer months of teacher pay, but also get those contributions to us by July 10th and still follow the administrative rule. Some other changes that we're asking for. We're going to ask for a running total of the member sick leave days that are available for use to be reported to us on a pay period basis. We know a lot of employers, just because we have done audits, a lot of employers include this on their employees' pay stubs anyway. But that's something we're going to ask. It helps us with estimates, and we've got validations built around that also to make sure that, or try to identify if there's sick leave granting by the employer. But that's a big change that we're asking for. Unpaid board approved leaves of absence, we're also asking you to report to us. So if somebody is approved for a leave, there is a payment reason that we want you to send in to us to tell us and give us a begin date, an end date if you have an end date, or at least a begin date of when that leave happens, so that we know real time that this person's on a leave from this period to this period, because that employee will have the option to purchase that time back. Dock days we want reported to us as they happen. This will help us reconcile earnings and full-time rate. This next bullet is probably one of the big ones. In the past, we've never asked you to report post-retirement work. Retirees who have come back to work to sub or some other position. we've never asked you to report that to us. It's always been self-reported, but there are limits to how many hours a retiree can come back to work and still keep their pension. And what we want to do is we don't want to see anybody lose their pension. So we are wanting you to report those post-retirement hours to us so that we can track them. So if they get up to those limits of 600 hours, which is what it currently is, we can notify the member and say, hey, the retiree, and say, hey, you're getting awfully close here. We can report back to you and say, your retiree is getting close here. You don't want to risk losing your pension, so be sure to stop working before you reach that limit. And we'll also be able to track if they're subbing at multiple districts. Right now, it's almost impossible to do, but through Gemini, we'll be able to do that. So if they're subbing at District A and District B, District A is going to keep track of their hours at that district. District B will do the same, but we're going to be able to combine them so that we can let everybody know that this person's getting close to the limit. I add this one bullet, and Lisa, you may have to help me why I added this one, but doc days are not part of a board-approved non-paid leave of absence. And basically, I think what we're trying to say is we don't want you to report doc days if somebody's on a non-paid leave of absence. Is that right, Lisa?
Yes, they'll be reported in one spot or the other. If somebody's on a board-approved leave of absence, and they're being docked because it's an unpaid board-approved leave of absence, those days are reported under the board-approved leave of absence, and dock days are any days that are docked outside the payment reason of LA leave of absence.
Right. Yeah, we just don't want double reporting them at that time. Thank you.
Another question about
Yes.
dock days just came in here from Laura. She says, will you report dock days when they're actually deducted from pay or when they occur? Our practice is to spread our docs so that the employee still can cover their insurance deductions, etc.
And that's okay also. And Lisa or Chris, you can chime in also, but we want you to report them as you are. You can do it either way, actually. You can give us the dock days as they happen, or if you spread them out, you can report them to us like that. Lisa, is that correct? Or you want to add anything to that?
No, that is correct, and I don't want to add anything.
And Chris, there's no problem with validations on?
Nope, both are perfectly acceptable, either all at once as they happen, or if you're spreading them out, then reporting them to us piecemeal as the amounts actually docked is fine as well.
Yeah, and I'm gathering through all these the questions we get through email and these webinars that we're doing that most districts do spread them out like that, so it's not uncommon at all. So I just skipped that one, didn't I? Sorry about that. Testing. Let's talk about the testing process. Again, it's been going on since January. We've had several vendors testing with us actively, and what they've been doing is taking real data. We want to test with real data, so they have been working with certain employers, taking their actual payroll data. And then we've set up a secure FTP site where they have placed the files up there. And we take that test file then and we run it through our validations. So it'll work just like when we go live. The only difference is you'll be actually uploading a file. These vendors are actually placing a file in an FTP that we can pull down then and run through our validations. So then we give the vendor a response. Most of the vendors have been going back then to the employers they're working with and talked about the response that we basically were saying, these are the errors that triggered, and this is why they triggered. And we've had many calls with the vendors to go through our responses so they understand what we're looking for. Again, you know, there's been times when things are misinterpreted or we just need to clarify. And there have been things that we found through this testing process that we need to change on our side too. We just had one, we found we had a validation on contract days for administrators, and we had a minimum value that we were looking for. Anything under that minimum would trigger a fatal error, and we would say this has to be changed. Well, I think we're going to have to tweak that. And so this testing process is bringing things to light on both sides, our side and the vendor side. But again, these vendors, some of them have done a great job and continue to do a good job. They're still testing because there's always things that can be found through further testing. But once we get to the point where we say, you're good to go, vendor, all the employers that work with that vendor are also good to go. And I'll give you that list in the next slide of who we feel we're confident that they'll be good to go. And it's only the employers who are doing file upload, or only the vendors, you know, who are doing the file upload that we need to test. The replication process, that data entry, we're not going to do a test for those. The process is pretty self-explanatory. The portal will walk you right through what needs to be reported and how it needs to be reported. So these are the active vendors who are testing with us and have been for some time. A couple of them are pretty new to the testing process, but we've had good conversations with them. They understand what they need to do to tweak on their side, and we'll continue the interaction. But SDS, Skyward, Tyler Technologies, Infinite Visions. Tyler Technologies actually has different software, but the Infinite Vision side of it, we've had several tests going back and forth. The others we have not received yet, like Munis and I can't remember the other one. Decision Systems, they're good to go. Wiedenhammer just started testing with us, as did RDA Systems. But again, the conversations went well, and they understand what we need. SIMS is another one that's tested. It only has a couple of districts, but they're big districts. So, so if you work with any of these, feel confident that you'll be good to go for go live.
Question here from Mary Beth. She's wondering about Skyward. Is that Skyward Q or their old system? She says there's a big difference.
I think it's both. Ricky Springer is our contact there, but they are supporting both cumulative and the legacy. I can't remember what the legacy system is. That was my understanding. But they have a big conference, I believe in November, early November. But I can try to get a clarification of that also. I have a call with Ricky next week.
Great. Mary Beth had a follow-up. She says she has talked to Ricky there, and she thinks that's her answer because Ricky is with Q.
Ricky is with Q. Yeah, I'll have to clarify and what they're doing about the other side too. These are other vendors that we have talked, we have had contact with. Power School is real close to starting the testing process, but again, that's for their e-finance. The other software that Power School supports, as far as I know, are not doing anything. But Tyler Tech, Munis, Software Unlimited, Common Goal, Harris School Solutions, these are all vendors that we've been in contact with, and they have promised they are working on an application and want to start testing soon. So we will continue to follow up with them. So again, the timeline has changed. That was, we talked about that already, but I want everyone to know that we are not slowing down on the Gemini team. The IT team with the developers, Chris with the business analysts and the quality assurance, and even in employer services, we're all working towards the goal of being ready to go live when this final assessment is done. If you want to know anything about Gemini, all the information is out on the employer website, TRS employer website. The file layouts out there, a big QA document, all the bulletins that we have sent out regarding Gemini are out there on that page. And this is the website that you can find it at. Any questions you have, and I know most of you know how to find us, just send them into the Employer Services Department. Lisa's been doing a great job keeping up with those questions. Sometimes we have to confer as a group to get consensus on answers, but we like to be challenged with those questions, so keep them coming in. We appreciate it. So that's all I had for the PowerPoint presentation. Are there any questions at this point before we start showing the demo?
Just had a couple questions come in here. One from Mary Beth. She says, you said there was a resource for helping with the non-accelerated payments by July 10th. And then she also said, we had major issues with our books this year because the contributions posted in 1920 and are expensed in 2021.
Yes, there is a Q&A document on the TRS website. On the employer page, you go to Gemini. I don't know if I'm still sharing or not.
You are sharing your slides still.
Just a slide still? Okay,
Yeah.
let me get to the page I want to get to anyway. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to just share again. That's not what I want. That's what I want. Okay, so I'm in the TRS website now, the unsecure website that anybody can get to. I've clicked on employer, because when you come to the website, it'll come to the member page, but an employer page, and then pay period reporting. This is where you'll find all of the resources for Gemini. There's a previous presentation we did just like this, but there's a FAQ document out here. And I believe we just updated that. Lisa, did we not?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so it's broken out by topics.
Look under general, I think.
Here's the acceleration, at least some of it. And some examples under here. So Lisa, I don't know if you want to take a minute and talk about some of the options that employers have.
Yes, since all contributions are due to us by July 10th, there are several ways of making sure that the contributions are here. If you're spreading out the teacher's pay over 12 months, because at the end of June, beginning of July, you're going to report everybody's salary that you may be paying out in July and August as deferred. So there's several ways to do that and get the contributions to us on time. You can run all checks at the end of June, beginning of July, to make sure that the contributions are remitted to us by the deadline. And you can either hold the checks and give it to the teachers in July and August, or you can pay it to them in June. You can not pay them until July and August. The district can front the contributions to get them here by July 10th. and report those anticipated earnings as deferred. And in that case, when you do pay the teachers in July and August, you will keep those contributions and not remit them to TRS. And the third option is to pay all teachers over 12 months, over 10 months instead of 12, so that all of their salary is paid out by the end of June.
That one's probably a little bit harder to sell. But, you know, we have had districts do these options even prior to this requirement. So we know it can be done. It is a mandate, so if you need to take it back to your higher ups, this is considered a TRS mandate that these accelerations can no longer occur.
We have another question here from Renee. She says, we have SDS and part of the Gemini setup is entering a contribution category for each employee. Is there a way that we can get a report of what contribution category our employees are in?
Or is that the tier? Is that what she's asking?
Yeah, that's what,
Yes.
it's the same thing, right?
There is a lookup on our system, and that's in the web access. Is that right, Lisa?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so if you sign into the web access, so this employer login here, there is a member lookup. So you can look somebody up to see what tier they are currently in, and that way you can set them up that way in your system. But what we've done is we've made a suggestion. If you do not know and the employee doesn't know what tier they're in, report them as tier 2 as a default. And that's one of the main, or one of the first validations you'll get is you're reporting the wrong tier for this person. So if you reported somebody as a tier 2, they should be a tier 1. We're going to tell you that in the portal. You just go in and make that correction, and then you make it also in your payroll system so that you know next time to report them, or in the SDS system in this case, so that you report them correctly going forward. But it is a fatal error, so we're going to make you correct it the first time, but after that, it should be coming through to us correctly.
And then Renee has another question here. She says, with SDS, we are also required to have each TRS member attached to a calendar. SDS was unsure how we assign a calendar to substitutes and retired hourly employees. Do you know how we will do this?
Well, I don't think you could assign a calendar to substitutes because you don't know their schedule unless they're a long-term sub. Lisa or Chris, you have any insight in that?
Grant, I thought when we talked to SDS, they had told us that they did not need to have a calendar for subs or hourlies.
I think you're right.
Just the
Right. We
same
did
as
talk
what
to
you said.
Terry. Yeah, we talked to Terry at SDS. That's right, to clarify that very question. And it sounded like it was just for the contractuals, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And Pam did just say in the chat as well that you can use the lookup in the TRS employer login if you have the social security number. It tells the tier or if they are not yet enrolled, i.e. a substitute.
Okay.